natural disasters are increasing, both in terms of frequency and magnitude. Their impacts on our lands and societies, particularly the most vulnerable, are undermining efforts to reduce poverty and to achieve a sustainable development. In 2015, the international community took unprecedented steps in assessing and facing climate change, pursuing a shift to low-carbon, climate-resilient societies and economies. To this end, 3 landmark global agendas were produced. The Paris Agreement, the Sustainable Development Goals within the framework of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 2030. The Sendai Framework calls for a paradigm shift from disaster response to disaster risk management, with only one but challenging expected outcome: the substantial reduction of disaster risk and losses in lives, livelihoods and health, and in the economic, physical, social, cultural and environmental assets of persons, businesses, communities and countries. Within a set of 4 actions, one of the Sendai's priorities is to understand risk, a fundamental asset applied to the entire disaster risk management cycle, from risk assessment to prevention, mitigation, preparedness and response. Risk components are hazard, that is, the chance of a potential destructive phenomenon to happen; exposure, meaning the location, attributes and values of assets of a community; vulnerability, being the likelihood that assets will be damaged or destroyed when exposed to a hazard event; and risk, which is the composite of the impacts of all potential events. Africa has been identified as one of the parts of the world most vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. To this end, the EU programme Building Disaster Resilience to Natural Hazards in Sub-Saharan African Regions, Countries and Communities was set to action to provide an effective and comprehensive disaster risk reduction framework within the region. Under the programme, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction and CIMA Research Foundation, an international research centre on disaster risk reduction and civil protection areas, have generated risk profiles of floods and droughts in 16 countries in Sub-Saharan Africa. The aim of this work was to quantify the impact of alluvial and drought events, both for the current climate and in terms of climate change, through a holistic approach by taking into account not only the effects on the population, but also the economic impact. In addition, impact on infrastructures such as transport, schools, public buildings, health facilities, agriculture and energy production were also assessed. Forecasts are made for a medium-term future horizon, from 2050 to 2100, considering impact of climate change and socio-economic evolution, and they will be shared with the institutions that have the responsibility of defining disaster risk reduction strategies and sustainable development policies.